The glass door of conference room 4C clicked shut behind me with a finality that made the air feel heavier. Lisa Chen, our head of HR, sat across the polished oak table flanked by David Lang, the new COO who'd been with us barely 2 months, and a younger HR coordinator whose name I never caught. Lisa cleared her throat, her voice measured but tight. Sarah, this isn't easy to say, but after reviewing our organizational priorities for the new fiscal year, we've decided to restructure your role effective immediately. I didn't speak. I simply nodded once, feeling the familiar weight of my spiral notebook under my arm. Inside it were dates, emails, clause references, all the quiet evidence I'd collected over the past weeks. David leaned forward with that practiced, empathetic executive lean, hands clasped. It's not personal, Sarah. Standard realignment ahead of the comp cycle. You'll get your final paycheck by the end of next week. And we're happy to provide a recommendation letter if needed. Not personal. The words hung there like stale coffee in the break room. I'd spent 11 years at Vanguard Capital Partners in Midtown Manhattan, surviving 2 acquisitions, 3 major restructurings, and countless late nights cleaning up compliance messes that could have cost the firm federal contracts or worse. I built frameworks, documented every policy thread, and kept systems spotless. No leaks, no scandals, just steady, invisible work. And now, standard realignment. I unpinned my badge, placed it gently in the center of the table. Lisa reached for it automatically, her fingers hesitating for half a second. I stood, smoothed my blazer, and walked out without another word. My heels echoed down the hallway lined with abstract art prints and motivational posters that suddenly felt mocking. Back at my desk, I didn't pack family photos or the small succulent I'd kept alive through endless deadlines. I opened my laptop one last time and hit send on the email draft I'd prepared 6 days earlier. The subject line read simply, Formal Notice, Trigger of Retention Agreement Clause 17B. Attached were the original signed retention documents from 2019, highlighted in yellow. Screenshots of recent HR correspondence confirming my deferred performance bonus, vesting date of January 13th. And a 1-page letter from my attorney, Kenneth Rivera. I closed the laptop, grabbed my bag, and left the building. The January wind off the Hudson cut sharp as I walked toward the subway. But inside I felt a strange calm. Disappointment. Yes. The quiet kind that settles after years of loyalty. But panic? No. I'd seen this pattern too many times in other firms. To understand how we arrived at that moment in 4C, you have to go back. I joined Vanguard right after business school, fresh-faced and idealistic about building ethical financial systems. The firm was mid-market then, navigating choppy waters between venture deals and regulatory scrutiny. By my 3rd year, the first acquisition hit, swallowed by a larger private equity group. I stayed, rewriting compliance manuals overnight while others jumped ship. Year 5 brought another restructure. I documented every change meticulously. Year 9, the second big buyout. And that's when I insisted on the custom clause. It was late 2019, post-acquisition chaos. The old CFO was pushing to roll long-term incentives into new packages, effectively vanishing deferred comp promises. I sat in Rebecca Mills' office, our then general counsel, with stacks of contracts. If retention means anything, I told her calmly, we need teeth in these agreements. Rebecca had paused, pen hovering. Aggressive, isn't it? I replied. Precision over ambiguity. Math, not interpretation. We drafted Clause 17B together. Termination without cause within 30 days of scheduled bonus vesting triggers full accelerated payout within 48 hours. Plus hourly compounding penalties under subsection 17C if missed. She initialed it in blue ink beside my handwriting. Enforceable, she noted in the margin. Fast forward to this past December. My 6-year deferred bonus, $4.2 million after taxes and adjustments, was set to vest Friday, January 13th. I sent a polite calendar invite to HR for final confirmation. No reply for 2 days. Then a vague, "we'll circle back." My gut tightened. I'd worked in compliance long enough to spot when silence replaced paragraphs. Lisa, who once CC'd half the floor on every update, suddenly went radio silent on my vesting reminders. David Lang began looping me out of meetings subtly, first optional invites, then missing from calendars entirely. I didn't panic. I documented. I pulled the original paper retention agreement from my home office file cabinet in Queens, the one with ink signatures and coffee stains from those frantic 2019 nights. Page 7 held Clause 17b. Still binding. I printed a fresh copy, highlighted it, added screenshots of Lisa's November email confirming, "Your bonus will vest January 13th as scheduled," and forwarded everything to Kenneth. We prepped quietly. No open confrontation. No LinkedIn posts. Just facts, timelines, and airtight language. Mid-December emails grew colder. My reminder about tax planning for the vesting got a 3-day delayed reply. Reviewing schedules. Will confirm shortly. Sent at 4:57 p.m. Friday. The corporate hour for hoping no one notices. I responded to none of it. Instead, I finished my last projects, vendor attestations, SOC2 policy, threads, cross-border reconciliation, no one else wanted. The subtle sidelining continued. Conversations I once led became optional, then absent. It was textbook, create ambiguity between restructuring and retaliation. Timed perfectly before vesting. They thought they were clever. But I'd written enough of those policies to recognize the playbook. Thursday morning arrived cold and gray over Manhattan. I arrived early. Coffee in hand, air still thick with overnight cleaning solution. Lisa's assistant intercepted me before my desk. Quick chat in 4C. Her voice strained. I nodded. Notebook tucked under arm. The black spiral one reserved for delicate HR matters. Inside 4C. The trio waited. Lisa's "thanks for coming" felt like offering tea before bad news. David delivered the bullet. Phased out. Final check next week. Appreciate your service. I said nothing. Just tore the top notebook page noting Thursday 9 a.m. and slid it into my bag. Badge on table. Exit clean. But the email had already flown. By the time I reached the street, Rebecca Mills, now elevated to Chief Legal Officer, would soon open that attachment during her Finance Committee meeting. Rebecca Mills froze mid-sentence about Q1 currency hedging when her laptop pinged. The subject line, "Formal Notice, Trigger of Retention Agreement Clause 17b," stopped her cold. She glanced down, saw my attorney's name, Kenneth Rivera, and felt that unmistakable live wire recognition. No panic yet, just the slow dawning that something fundamental had gone wrong. She reread it twice. Attached zipped folder, my original 2019 retention agreement, Clause 17b bolded in yellow. Screenshots of Lisa's confirmations, calendar invites, and David's recent internal memos acknowledging the vesting schedule. Rebecca clicked open the PDF. Zooming on the precise language, termination without cause within 30 days of scheduled vesting shall trigger accelerated full payout within 48 hours. Subsection 17C detailed the penalties, hourly compounding interest at a rate that escalated liability dramatically if missed. She removed her glasses slowly. The room went quiet. A junior analyst shifted, thinking she'd lost her place in the deck. Another board member cleared his throat. But Rebecca wasn't stuck on data. She was recalculating Vanguard's immediate future. She remembered drafting that clause with me in 2019, amid post-acquisition panic when half the legacy team threatened to walk. I'd sat quietly in her glass-walled office, insisting on teeth. "You don't want interpretation," I'd said. "You want math." She'd initialed it herself, circling enforceable in blue.
Now.
5 years later, it boomeranged back with surgical force. She whispered to the head of finance beside her. He leaned in, eyebrows rising. The junior counsel scrambled for the employment database, but it was too late. The trigger had been pulled. Rebecca opened Kenneth's formal letter, termination at 9:03 a.m. Today without cause. Inside the 30-day window. Demanding payout by 9:03 a.m. Saturday. Failure activates 17C penalties. No grace. No review. They had less than 48 hours. Silence stretched. David Lang wasn't in the room. He was still basking in his decisive morning, but Lisa Chin was looped in soon after. Rebecca locked down a war room on the 11th floor. Internal legal, HR,
Pearl,
and compliance associates poured in, digging through 5 years of contracts like archaeologists hunting loopholes. They pulled every retention package since 2019, desperate for an override, amendment, or conflicting policy. Clause 17B wasn't boilerplate. It was custom, manually inserted, initialed by Rebecca herself. Metadata showed my agreement untouched since 2019, no revisions. Attempts to argue implicit acceptance via 2022 benefits updates failed. Those covered health plans, not deferrals. Payroll confirmed the final paycheck was queued, but the bonus wasn't. The vesting confirmation emails from Lisa removed plausible deniability. David finally got pulled in around 4:30 p.m. His first words, "Why didn't anyone flag this clause?" Rebecca didn't answer directly. The truth stung worse than oversight. The clause sat right there on page 7. Bolded. Initialed. They hadn't hidden it. They'd simply never bothered to read it before signing the termination letter. By evening, the board's risk officer flagged it as Tier 1 liability. $4.2 million base plus hourly compounding penalties, $7,800 per hour after deadline. Projections showed 6 figures by Monday. $500,000 by week's end, if unresolved. They hunted wedges. Processing delays? Paperwork not final? But Lisa had already revoked my access, emailed COBRA forms, and deactivated my badge at 9:03 a.m. The timer ran real. Friday morning, 9:03 a.m. Sharp. The deadline passed. A second-year associate walked into the war room, holding the agreement. "There's a penalty clause," she said quietly. "It compounds hourly." Rebecca reread. The embedded calculation table confirmed. Every hour after deadline added $7,800.
Compounding.
They'd missed by minutes. The meter started. David arrived smug at 9:17 a.m., suggesting expedited payout to avoid interest. Rebecca looked at him evenly. "The clause says within 48 hours. Not upon intent. Penalties are active." David frowned. "I didn't approve that language." "No," Rebecca replied, "but you signed the termination letter." Silence fell. The screen showed his signature. Time-stamped 9:03 a.m. Thursday. They tried renegotiation angles. But Kenneth's reply was surgical. All terms remain in force as originally filed. No discussion invited. Payroll needed dual CFO signatures for the wire due to dispute flags. Delays mounted. By 10:03 a.m. Saturday, 4 minutes past, another $7,800 hit. The war room watched the liability tracker climb like a nightmare stock ticker. Rebecca emailed me personally at 12:47 p.m. "We are processing your payout. Please confirm bank details."
Additionally,
We would appreciate discussing confidentiality obligations. The tremor of panic hid behind professional polish. I forwarded it to Kenneth without reply. He responded for me. Same single sentence. No exit ramp offered. The compounding continued through the weekend. Sunday night. Investors from 2 major funds canceled Monday calls abruptly. Blood in the water. Inside Vanguard. Dread thickened. Lisa sat stiff in the boardroom Monday. David still clinging to his operational realignment deck. Rebecca arrived late.
Coat half on.
Dropping the printed agreement hard on the table before David. Please tell me you paid her, Rebecca said. Voice calm, but carrying across the boardroom like a whip crack. David blinked. Mouth opening then closing. The room's barometric pressure shifted. An independent board member from a major investor group cleared her throat. We understood executive terminations received prior legal review. Was that not followed? Another chimed in about the overlooked retention clause's significance. No one spoke at first. Lisa looked down at her folded hands. David sat rigid. A compliance associate, not senior, pulled up an internal memo on the shared screen. Avoidable financial exposure from mishandling legacy retention agreement. Redacted employee details, but clear summary. $4.2 million bonus plus $140,000 plus accrued interest by 8 a.m. Monday. Potential litigation damages. Root cause failure to review Clause 17B prior to no-cause termination. David sputtered. There was no bad faith. Timing issue. Rebecca set her glasses down. Voice rising just enough. No. David. It was negligence. You signed the letter. You didn't read the agreement. Now we're hemorrhaging funds we can't explain to investors. A board member held up a hand. We're tabling all Q1 initiatives until resolved. Legal will review processes fully. Prepare written statements. The implication landed heavy. Rebecca turned the agreement page, pointing to her own initials beside Clause 17B and David's signature on the termination. Timestamps didn't lie. The tracker refreshed. Interest now $148,200. David's deck went untouched. This wasn't realignment anymore, it was accountability. And his name sat on every critical page. Meanwhile, in my quiet Queens apartment, I brewed coffee while the cat stretched across the windowsill. The mundane felt grounding as the payout crawled forward in hourly regret. No tears. No rage, just the satisfaction of documentation prevailing. I never wanted volume or drama. Just enforcement of terms they'd agreed to when times were desperate. By Tuesday, the wire finally processed after frantic signatures. $4.2 million base plus full accrued interest hit my account Friday afternoon. No call. No apology. Just a sterile bank notification and curt PDF from external counsel. Per agreement. Full payment enclosed including interest accrued. Reference to Clause 17B. No NDA attempted successfully. Kenneth's reply had shut that down cold. Vanguard posted a bland internal memo about strategic evolution and leadership realignment. Translation: swords were falling. David's LinkedIn went dark within days. Lisa's calendar cleared before Q2 planning. The interim controller, who first flagged compounding, took over operations quietly. The entire executive comp review committee fell under direct board oversight. In April, buried on page 87 of the quarterly shareholder filing appendix, almost no one reads, sat one sentence: settlement executed per Clause 17 be effective retroactively. No names, no amounts, no commentary, but legal ink on public record. The clause demanded disclosure. I printed it, clipped it to my original agreement, and filed it away. Not every victory shouts. Some arrive precise, private, irreversible like a wire transfer. They saw me as the back office name, the quiet compliance woman cleaning messes without making waves. But I wasn't just cleaning, I documented futures. When they made me their problem, I became the clause they couldn't ignore. Fired on a Thursday. Paid by Friday. Every ticking hour. Every added dollar a reminder. Contracts. When written right. Don't forget. Yet the story lingers with questions. How many long-tenured professionals stay loyal? Documenting silently, only to face the blade when inconvenient? What does it say about corporate culture when precision clauses, born from past chaos, are ignored until they explode? Loyalty tested against self-preservation. Math versus interpretation. In the end, the numbers spoke loudest. But the human cost, the eroded trust, the boardroom reckonings, echoes longer. Would you have seen the clause coming? Or would loyalty have blinded you too? To fully grasp the emotional undercurrents, consider the psychological toll on all sides. For me, Sarah Thompson, those 11 years weren't just jobs, they were identity forged in fluorescent-lit war rooms and late-night audits. Surviving acquisitions meant swallowing pride, outlasting shiny new stars who flamed out. I became institutional memory, invisible until inconvenient. The sidelining felt personal despite corporate language, a slow erosion of belonging. Yet I never lashed out. Compliance taught restraint. Observe patterns, document deviations, let evidence lead. The company's panic revealed deeper fractures. Rebecca Mills carried personal weight seeing her own initials boomerang. That 2019 drafting session replayed in her mind, my calm insistence on teeth, amid her push for softer language.
Now,
As chief legal officer, she defended the firm she'd helped bind. David's arrival as cultural cleanup executive exemplified the arrogance, hired to cut fat without understanding legacy protections. His misstep wasn't malice alone, but hubris meeting unread fine print. Board members felt exposure too. Investor pullouts signaled reputational risk spreading. One director later confided off-record the fear of SEC scrutiny over governance lapses. The hourly penalties weren't abstract. They represented real cash bleed, forcing emergency capital reviews. Payroll delays compounded embarrassment, needing dual signatures for a standard payout turned routine into crisis. Flashback to my final weeks, the isolation crept in subtly. Missed invites to vendor risk briefings I'd authored. Slack threads bypassing me on SOC2 updates. Lisa's voice on calls grew clipped. I finished projects dutifully, reconciliation spreadsheets. Policy threads, knowing silence confirmed the trap. Pre-drafting the notice email days ahead wasn't paranoia, but preparation. Born from seeing similar restructurings claim bonuses elsewhere. When the 48-hour clock expired that Saturday morning, the war room's atmosphere turned funereal. Rebecca reviewed workarounds futilely. The associate's discovery of Clause 17C's compounding table hit like a dropped elevator. Projections escalated rapidly. By Sunday evening, over $200,000 in penalties alone. Attempts to argue best efforts failed against airtight language, no discretionary review, no reasonable cause exceptions. My non-response to Rebecca's personal email amplified pressure. Forwarding to Kenneth signaled no negotiation desire. They expected politeness. Loyalty hangover prompting settlement talks. Instead, the clause governed fully. This refusal to play ball forced self-reflection. Had loyalty blinded them to my preparedness? Monday's boardroom confrontation crystallized everything. Rebecca's dropped agreement echoed physically. David's sputter exposed cracks in his decisive facade. The memo's root cause line, failure to review, stung collectively. Tabling initiatives meant stalled deals, delayed bonuses elsewhere. Written statements loomed like confessions. Post-payment, internal ripples continued. David's exit was framed as mutual, but whispers linked it to the liability. Lisa faced performance reviews tying oversight to her confirmations. The controller's promotion highlighted competence amid chaos. Quietly. Firm-wide policy refresh mandated legal pre-approval for all legacy clause terminations. For me, the funds enabled financial planner consultations started months prior. Updated liquidity event planning brought security, but also reflection. Was this justice or just contract enforcement? The victory felt hollow in isolation, no public vindication. Just private satisfaction. Printing the filing appendix reminded me, some wins endure in silence. Yet ethical questions persist. In America's cutthroat corporate world, where acquisitions breed amnesia and restructurings mask cost-cutting, how many invisible professionals hold similar clauses? Does documentation equal cynicism or wisdom? When loyalty meets betrayal timed to vesting, does the system reward the prepared or punish the faithful? The compounding penalties taught a harsh lesson. Ignore history at your peril. The math always catches up. Spring arrived in New York with cherry blossoms along the High Line, a stark contrast to the winter's corporate chill. I walked those paths now with unhurried steps. $4.2 million plus penalties secured. Yet the story's weight lingered. No dramatic farewell Slack message. No viral post. Just quiet filing of documents and life moving forward, perhaps consulting gigs, perhaps early retirement planning. The cat still stretched on the sill, coffee brewed the same. But something shifted internally, a reinforced boundary between professional duty and personal protection. At Vanguard, scars remained visible only to insiders. The board's full process review uncovered similar legacy clauses in other agreements, prompting retroactive audits and training. Rebecca Mills implemented stricter retention clause tracking. Her enforceable note now legend. David's replacement emphasized governance literacy. Lisa's role narrowed. Her CC habits tempered by caution. The April filing sentence served as quiet coda, public record of accountability without spectacle. Shareholders might miss it, but regulators wouldn't if scrutinized. It underscored how one overlooked paragraph could realign power dynamics overnight. Psychologically, the episode exposed human frailty in high-stakes environments. David's smugness cracked under board questioning, revealing insecurity masked as decisiveness. Rebecca's recalculations carried guilt over past drafting leniency. For me, disappointment evolved into empowerment, the validation that quiet thoroughness prevails over flash. Broader societal reflections emerge. In U.S. venture capital's flux, acquisitions, pivots, reorgs, loyalty often proves one-sided. Long-tenured employees become institutional liabilities when bonuses loom. Legal realism demands protection, custom clauses as shields against amnesia. Yet they highlight systemic issues, short-termism prioritizing cuts over retention value. Humor laced the absurdity too. The junior associate's pale-faced, it compounds moment became whispered lore. Peril's signature scramble resembled a heist gone wrong. My laundry folding amid ticking interest carried poetic justice, mundane acts grounding million-dollar drama. Ultimately, the narrative leaves an haunting query. In pursuing efficiency, do corporations erode the very trust enabling success? When a compliance professional's foresight becomes the firm's undoing, does it signal progress or cautionary tale? I chose documentation over drama, math over mercy. They chose speed over scrutiny. The clause decided. And in America's boardrooms, such decisions echo far beyond wires or filings, questioning what loyalty truly costs, and whether anyone truly reads the fine print until it's too late.